everyone, and welcome back to the channel, and I hope that you are doing well. Now we're just going to crack on straight like last week in the video where we did a breakdown of the trades taken via the blueprint algo. Again, this isn't just to show the algo, this is to show the edge itself and how it's performing. And the reason why I'm showing the algo execution is because one thing that you can't do as a manual trader is that you can't execute as perfectly as an algo would, purely because you're just not going to be quick enough. But this will show you the difference between execution, and it will also show you how the trades are taken using the algo as well. But again, you can do all of this manually. So what we're going to do, we're going to look into London session, and this is on EU. So I've just taken some screen recordings of the algo in play. We have made some small adjustments to the visuals where you can see the fractal sweeps. You can also see the biases where it's all done for you, and that way you just have a reference as to what you can do and look back on. So if we just play through the video, so let's go into the session itself, which is about here, and we'll go to the first trade, which will be a loss, which you'll see here. So that one loses, and that's the very first trade. Now obviously we're still in a sell bias, as you can see on the left. Now we're just waiting for the next sweep, which happens quite soon. Here it comes, and then we have our entry, and then what you'll see is a yellow line that will come up here. That is our profit lock bit. So this is when our stop loss gets moved, and where that trade is closed, although it did go and smash our TP, what we've seen is multiple times where trades hit our break-even level and then price reaches back to our entry, and then we've just lost out this profit in between. Now, for the sake of a few pips, what we've done is we've set a system where we can move the break even at a certain percentage, and then we move our stop loss to a profit section at a certain percentage as well, just so we can secure majority of the trade. So either way, you're still capturing most of the risk to reward from that very trade. So let's look at this trade in a markup on TradingView. So going into Monday, so this is Monday the 13th. So what we have is, coming into the session, we obviously have a sell bias, and then we need to be aware that price does go to buy. Now, the very first trade that you saw that lost is this sweep here with a valid entry off this candle. So let's place, so you can see it on a visual. There's the entry. The stop loss is just above, and well, we could just put that up. 4, 5. Okay, so that was the first entry, and that was the first loss that we had. And obviously we're still looking for sells because we haven't taken the low yet. That eventually happens here. So what we have is the second sweep, which is here, and then we would have our entry, which is just off the next candle itself, with our stop loss here, just above the high, and then we're aiming for a 5-hour target, which is about, hold on a second, which is about there. There we go. And then what happens is price hit our profit lock target, and then we got taken out at profit on this trade. So we actually got taken out somewhere about here. Okay, let's move on to the next trade. So you've seen all the YouTube videos. With the right guidance, you have seen how quickly you can learn the edge. You've also seen live manual and algo executions of the edge. And for those of you who haven't joined either the algo or the Discord, still have questions like this. So what I've done now is I've created a PDF that covers every single aspect of the edge, from bias to entry to invalidation, as well as trade management. And that's all in one file. All you need to do is scroll down to the bottom of the page, click the link, and download your file now. So now we're going to look at the next trade, which is again on EU, and this is New York session. And let's see what happens here. So let's press play. So we're just coming into the session, which is happening now, and we're just waiting for our entry. So in this case, we're looking for buy orders, as you can see on the left, and this is the first buy order that we have. and then price just goes flying. The reason why price reacts the way it does is purely because this edge is fully based on liquidity, where liquidity is being taken and then price sweeps in the opposite direction. That is literally as simple as that. Now in this case, again, if you just go back, you can just see how price is just flowing. Okay, so, and obviously now you can see where our break-even target is met, and I don't think it's quick enough where you can see where the second red line is. Let me try and get to it. It's there. So here is where our profit lock target is when price reaches a certain percentage, and then that way we've at least secured this much of the trade. So if that trade does reverse, we're at least going to close out in profit rather than hitting our break even. But in this case, price hit our target anyway. This was a very, very simple trade to take, and you could probably already see it, where we obviously are looking to go long coming into the session. And here what we have straight away is a sweep and then a valid entry off here, and then entry, stop loss, and our target was somewhere up there. Let's move on to the next trade. Okay, so now we're going to look at the next trade, which is on GU. Again, it's on Monday the 13th, and this is London session. One thing I didn't mention in the previous ones is that these lines are our bias time frame. So you know how I always say split the screens just so you can see where the bias changes? This all automatically obviously does that for you because it has to, and he has to read it. So coming into session, we're obviously looking for sales, as you can see on the left. And then let's just keep playing. So what you'll see is now the session has started. Now it has. Okay, so now this is London, and it's just forming its fractals, and the entry is quite soon. So as you can see, is the red line that you see here is the fractals that is looking to sweep, and obviously you can see the fractals being printed on the chart as well. So here it's finally swept. No entry, no entry, and this is another thing. Very quick, if you're going to trade this manually, some people will pull the trigger here when it's not actually triggered, but you got very close to the trigger point. Now what the algo will do is prevent that from even happening, where you don't make those mistakes, because that is only something that a human can make. Now this isn't just trying to sell you the algo, because that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to teach you the edge, but I'm trying to show you the pros and cons between manual trading and algorithmic trading as well. So if we let this play, we eventually have a trigger, and then we just let this run on, coming into the session. So at this point, you just have to let it go. As you can see, you got the profit log target and the break-even target there as well, already marked. And then the price gets very close to our stop loss. Actually, not that close in fairness. And then another thing to pay attention to, sometimes when I mark it on the screen, it may be a little bit different, because what this also does is factor in live spreads to your stop loss, and then that will adjust your take profit as well with it. That is based on the current spreads at that very time, just so you don't get taken out by spread, as well as the buffer on top of that. So what you see in TradingView, you'll have a set buffer, but then what I suggest is, if you're going to trade it manually, I think I mentioned it before, is be sure to add whatever the current spread is for that pair, because things like pairs like GU, it can be quite high at times, so just bear that in mind. So let's keep playing, and as you'll already notice, it already hits TP, and there we go. So let's see this trade here. So coming into the session, now this is London. What we can see is that price is taking the high, so obviously looking to go short, and then it eventually takes the low. So coming into the session, what you saw is that a large wick candle, not large, large bullish candle come in with a huge wick, and then what we have is this sweep here, and then we have candle, sweeping candle, a refinement candle, refinement candle, refinement candle, no invalidation. Now obviously there's a lot of you questioning what invalidation is. In the snippet where I've shown about the PDF, that will actually break down what invalidation is, and you'll learn the exact rules for the edge all in one file for you. So just be sure to check that out in the link below as well. But anyway, we've got the entry here, and this is where you'll probably see a difference here, because the spread on this was quite high at the time. Let's see, 2.8. And then because we'll aim for 5R, yeah, so you can see the difference in this case, where also the entry was a bit tighter as well. But anyway, in this case, price hit our target. I think what would have happened, it would have been over 3R, and then because it closed off here, it would have been about a 3R target. So that's the difference that it will make, which will differ when it comes to manual trading. Say when you enter manually, based on the speed of this candle, you may enter somewhere here. Your stop loss will be over 3 pips, and then you'll be still aiming for a 3R target, but you'll be like somewhere here. You would miss it. You would miss the trade. You'll probably move to break even, or may even hit the profit lot target once you learn and understand that. But as you can see from the EA and what the algo will do, it will take it perfectly to capture these moves. Now bear in mind, the targets and the movement that we're looking for is very calculated, and it's all fully based on statistics. So we want to capture a certain amount of pips in the move, whereas if we're making manual errors where price is extended, we may miss certain wins because of that. Let's move on to the next trade. So let's move on to the next trade. Now this is AUDUSD and this is New York session. Now I've just forwarded through just so we can see, just so it's quicker as well. So coming in, we're obviously looking for buys, as you can see on the left. We have taken a loss already in the session, and then as you can see, we enter here, and that's probably the cleanest entry you can get as soon as it breaks. And then price continues, and you'll see it hit TP very soon. There we go. Okay, so AU, very clear, is lows taken, so obviously they were looking to go long coming into the session. Now what we have is sweep but no entry. Coming in, coming in, coming in, coming in. Now this is a valid entry on TradingView, right? And then you'll take a stop loss here. Now one thing that you need to be aware of is sometimes on brokers, especially on my broker, it printed a fractal here. So this is a valid sweep, but then it invalidated. So the EA didn't take a trade here. However, if you're trading it following based on TradingView, it's not that it's incorrect as such, because the edge is still correct and this is still a valid trade to take, which would have got stopped out here, and then you'll have another entry where which one. This loss I was talking about, sorry, was logged that you see on the left of the screen, was from London. So initially, one thing to always cross-reference is when you're going to trade, follow what your broker is showing rather than what the trading view is showing, because there's a difference between here and the fractals that will print on your broker time, and that is in live time as well, so just bear that in mind. Anyway, that'll be a valid sweep, and then we have an entry which would have stopped out here, and the sweep and the entry that you saw here was a sweep, and then the perfect entry was on the breakout of this candle, as you saw. And then I'm just going to mark it roughly just so you can see it as a visual, somewhere here, and that was over 3 pips, and there was like a 3R target somewhere like that. Okay, now we're going to move on to one more, or maybe two more breakdowns. I think there's a live trade that's currently on as well, which I'll also show a breakdown of. But I hope you're understanding the repeatable process of the edge and showing you the effectiveness of what mechanical trading can do. It's just what would happen is some of you will go away and test like a few days, and then you'll probably just get loss after loss. I'm not, and bear in mind, I'm only showing you a handful of trades, and not these aren't cherry picked. You've seen losses in this breakdown, in this very breakdown. It's not that every trade wins, but what you're seeing is the reality of how easy a system can be when you just stick to it and follow it. You just need to trust the system. A lot of you, for example, were back when I traded SMC, the smart money concepts is all liquidity based. This is all of that tied into one simple edge. Just think about it that way. It's just because it's simple doesn't mean that there's no complexity behind the edge. But anyway, let's move on to the next trade. Okay, so now we move on to the next one, and this is the last trade of, actually no, this is the second to last trade even. So what we have is AU, and this is London, and this was Tuesday the 14th. Now this is an interesting one because you'll see what I mean in terms of differences, what happens when you backtest. So we're just coming into session now, and we initially have a loss, which you'll see coming up. So we have our trigger, and then price stops out, and then we keep following. And what the broker is showing is what happened live. And as you can see, this is key part. This swept the low here, and then we have a very clean entry, as you can see, and then price goes and hits our target. There we go. Now coming into the session, so obviously here what we have is this is AUDUSD London, and we have a sweep of the low, which is here. So obviously we're looking to go long. Now the first trade that you saw was this sweep here with the entry here, and then it got stopped out. Very simple. The second one that actually won was here. Now what you can see here, the difference between the two. Now this is especially with TradingView. I don't know why it's just so bad when it comes to storing data, even if it's a few days, where the candles change. This does happen on the broker sometimes, but it's quite rare. However, on TradingView, it's very common where obviously we saw there was a clear sweep where we have this sweep and there's an entry and then it hits take profit, as you saw in that breakdown of the live trade. Now, in this case, obviously here in TradingView, you can't do that. When you backtest, you may miss trades like this. So that's why once you've learned the concept and once you understand the execution, it's very easy to forward test. And I implore you to forward test purely because it will eradicate this issue. And even if you're going to backtest on the very day. Whereas if you backtest like a few days or even weeks behind, you'll get differences like this, which will skew results. And then when you come back to look at this video, for example, you'll see, oh, this was incorrect. Why doesn't this match? This is the very reason, and this is something you cannot control either. Anyway, let's look at the one last trade, which was a live trade that was recorded at the time when I was actually filming this. So this was the last live trade that I just caught, which was playing at the time. It was flirting around, take profit for a little bit. I was playing around with it. It was doing this, and then it eventually closed out. There we go. Okay, so coming into the session, so what we can see, and this is USD CAD New York. We obviously have a sweep of the high, so we're obviously looking to go short. And then coming into the session, I don't know where my indicator's gone, but this is coming into the session. And then straight away, what we have is the sweep of this high here, and then the entry. And this is was interesting. It took a long time to hit, which was here with our stop loss above this high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh gosh. And then it's a 5R target, which eventually got hit. There. And it's really is as simple as that. It is literally just following what the bias is, in the same principle. And as I said in the PDF, in the short clip that you saw, that PDF will break down every single trade rules that you need. And this is just an entry for those of you who aren't ready or on the fence about joining Discord in terms of learning the edge, or those of you who are just on the edge about learning and actually utilizing the algo, for example. This will give you an idea where you can go ahead and manually backtest the edge before you even think about the algo. Now, because the thing about the algo is we never thought about doing automatic trading. It was never a question, never a plan. However, as we know, when it comes to trading, life does get in the way where you can't always come to the session, and then you miss trades like this, but then you take losses in London, for example. However, if you know, for example, when you do your testing, you know what session works best for what pair, you can just set the algo to trade that session for you when you're not able to. Or if you just don't want to trade manually at all, just leave it running. Leave it running, whatever pair, whatever session that you prefer based on your manual testing. You can go ahead and do that. Even when you have the algo, you can do your own automated hands-free testing just by running the data through using the MT4, MT5 tester, just so you can understand and see what results you can get based on the blueprint edge. It's not just any old algo, because I've used so many algos in the past where they are essentially all martingale. Majority are martingale, where you get stacked orders or you get hedging or you get grid trading. I don't really understand too much of the difference, but I've had so many EAs where I've had problems with, whereas I wanted to create a system and an EA that is based on an edge that I personally trade to the point where I don't need to trade manually anymore, purely because it's time wise it wasn't always easy. Trading New York wasn't always easy. I'm not always at the charts, and this allows me to just do that. And this is the process, this is the reason why we created the algos. It wasn't, as I said, it was never really a plan or goal for us. But anyway, as I said in the previous videos, everything that you have is here for you. All you need to do is go ahead and test. You can do just as well manually trading with this edge, but there are obviously ways where you can improve that by using the correct systems. But anyway, I will leave you be, and I will see you all in the next video.